Hey everyone, Callum from Cagefront here. Welcome back to the channel, and if you are new here, welcome to the channel. We have another predictions and breakdown video here with Neil Magny versus Carlos Prates headlining the card in the Apex, and we have Reinier De Ridder, a two-time champion from one championship, coming into the UFC for the first time, making his debut in the 185-pound division, who is a grappling freak. And we have Neil Magny trying to maintain his ranking position, and we have one of the four horsemen in Carlos Prates from the Fighting Nerds coming to claim that ranking spot. So without further ado, let's get into the first fight of Mullins versus Klaudia Sygula. So this matchup is going to be pretty interesting when it comes to the feet, because it's either going to be at least semi-technical from Mullins' side, or it's just going to be so scrappy, because Mullins, she does have less experience as an MMA fighter, but she's had better experience in terms of her competition, because she lost to Cornell in her last fight and lost her undefeated streak, but she beat Elizeu in the fight before that, and she showed very nice straight strikes straight down the pipe, and her jab is without a doubt the best part of her game, and she just has nice timing when she's on the back foot. So that really comes into play when you've got someone like Klaudia Sygula, who we don't know a lot about, but I've seen a few of her fights on the regional scene, and she's very scrappy. She's just a scrappy brawler kind of style. There's not much technical capability there, and when someone like that is aggressive and coming forward, and they're fighting someone that has a very good jab, they can completely disrupt their flow when they are moving forward, and that's what I think Mullins is going to be able to do very well in this fight. And as well as that, Mullins honestly does have a pretty underrated ground game. When she fought Elizeu, very good transitionally on the ground, was able to make sure she could use the quarter Nelsons to control her on the ground, and made sure that she could actually secure the back when her back was secured at the start of that fight as well. So Mullins is good at transitionally getting to a better position. And honestly, from Klaudia Sygula, from what I've seen, I'm not really sure why the UFC have signed her, to be honest. There's nothing really that amazing about her game, to be realistically honest with you. I guess the bantamweight division just needs as many fighters as it can get at this point, but I did feel like this was a bit of a weird one. And honestly, I think Mullins is going to take this one pretty easy by a 30-27 decision. Sygula's never been finished on the feet. There is a possibility there, which Melissa could honestly find her first submission win here, but I'm more confident in the decision here, because honestly, if Klaudia Sygula is going to come out brawling, swinging, and she does obviously clip Mullins, because Mullins has been dropped multiple times in her career so far. So I think Mullins is going to play it safe, stick on the outside, utilize the jab as the counter, and just win this fight pretty much entirely on volume and control on the ground if she can get it there. Moving up the card to Tresean Gore versus Mackenzie Dern's side piece, Antonio Trocoli. Trocoli, he's all right. Like, he's taller than Gore for sure, 5-inch reach advantage, but aside from the reach advantage and possibly the submissions as well, there's just not really much Trocoli offers, to be honest. I haven't seen him be that great in many of his fights at all. He's not been impressive in the UFC. I mean, he got destroyed by Shara Bullet in his last fight. Shara Bullet was just experimenting with him, and by the end of their fight, to be honest. So yeah, not much we've seen from him, but granted, that was from back-to-back weight cuts. He was supposed to fight Ikram Aliskerov a week later, then fight Shara Bullet. So, you know, you got to give him part of it there, but big issue from him is that he leaves his chin up in the air, straight up in the air, all the time. And Tresean Gore, he has twice the output, better accuracy on the feet, and aside from him getting KO'd by Brundage, he's looked better against tougher competition, because he's fought Brian Battle, lost to him, but then he fought Josh Fremd and choked him out badly. And Josh Fremd is better than Trocoli, to be honest, and Tresean Gore has a very good wrestling offense, which I think he can utilize in this fight to the point where he can also keep himself safe from Trocoli and his submissions, but you can use that overall strength that he has on the ground to control him most of this fight. And Tresean Gore, his hand speed is also faster than Trocoli's, so pretty much on the ground, in top control and on the feet, I'm taking Tresean Gore in this fight realistically. Unless Trocoli can secure a nice guillotine there, there's a possibility, but Tresean Gore has also never been submitted, so I'm more so keen on Tresean Gore getting this one done, and honestly I do think that he's going to get it done by this decision win here. On the feet, the hand speed, that jab is just going to cut down that reach advantage that Trocoli has, and ultimately I think if Tresean Gore is able to keep himself safe with that top control and utilize his hand speed, he is going to get this one done by a decision win here, and I could honestly see it by a 30-27, possibly a 29-28, depends on Tresean Gore's gas tank. They both don't have the greatest, but I prefer Trocoli's, so it could be a 29-28 in that third round, Trocoli just landing a few better shots, but Gore, that first and second, he'll be taking it. Moving up the card to Cody Stamann versus Blackshear. So this is a pretty interesting fight. Cody Stamann is very entertaining because he's very well rounded and he's just fights at a very high, fast pace. And when we look at Cody Stamann, he's very durable and he's got KO power there. And Blackshear is coming off one of the roughest KOs to Montel Jackson. Pretty much just got chinned instantly. But looking at this fight, obviously it depends how Blackshear recovers. And I'm saying that he's going to recover well. I think that this is just going to be a better stylistic matchup for Blackshear, to be honest. Blackshear, his ground game is just much better in terms of combating with offense than Cody Stamann's, because Cody Stamann has good wrestling, but Blackshear is very versatile with his BJJ, and I don't think that's where Stamann wants the fight. And the issue is on the feet, similar to with Cody Stamann and fighting Lapulus in his last fight, Blackshear's got an 8-odd-inch reach advantage against him, and that is a big issue because Blackshear does have pretty good fundamentals on the feet. He's not like a great boxer, like, you know, with hooks, overhands, timing things with 3-4-piece combinations, not like that. Cody Stamann is better in that regard, but the 64.5-inch reach to the 72-inch reach is just a lot, and Blackshear fundamentally is good with utilizing straight shots at range, and that's where I think he's going to be able to shut down Cody Stamann's game very well. He's going to be able to jab him on the feet, just similar to Melissa Mullins will, and then when it comes to the ground, Blackshear will most likely be able to out-transition him pretty much most of the time and hunt for those submissions. But I don't think Cody Stamann is going to get submitted in this fight. I do think that Blackshear will be able to get this one done by another decision, and Cody Stamann will be able to keep himself safe on the ground, but the clock will work against him and will work in Blackshear's favor with utilizing that jab and the volume and obviously the ground control time. Moving up the card to Matthew Semelsburger versus Charles Radtke. So this is more of a tough fight to actually predict because Semelsburger is either extremely entertaining or he's absolutely terrible, because he's lost 4 of his last 5 fights now. He got out-muscled by Jeremiah Wells, he got out-pointed by Alex Morono, and he got taken out pretty badly by Uros Medic as well. So he really needs a win. Otherwise, he's probably going to get cut. And the issue is against Charles Radtke. Radtke has pretty much only lost in terms of a credible loss to Carlos Prates, who is literally headlining the card. And Charles Radtke, aside from that, has looked pretty decent so far. I mean, he won 6 fights in a row before losing to Carlos Prates. So realistically, if we're looking at them stylistically, Semelsburger definitely has the possibility where he could KO Radtke, but Radtke's striking, I think, is just a little bit cleaner in terms of technical capabilities, and his wrestling is probably the key here against Semelsburger, who just doesn't have the best transitional awareness on the ground, which is clear from Jeremiah Wells. And ultimately, I think Radtke is going to be able to control this fight more so. I think he's just got more tools and he's just going to be able to realistically just play the game on the ground and on the feet a bit better than Semelsburger. I think he's going to be able to get this one by a decision win. There's definitely a chance for Semelsburger to get the KO here, which he desperately needs. Otherwise, probably going to get cut. But I think that Charles Radtke just has the tools to get this one done by decision, whether it's on the feet or whether it's on the ground. Moving on to Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos versus Zach Scroggin. So this matchup just got made just as I was planning this video. So this was a complete change up. I had a full analysis for Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos versus Nick Dolby, which has just fallen through last minute. And we've had more fights that have fallen through on this card, so it's not shaping up too great. But this fight just makes it a bit more clear in the predictions, because Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos versus Nick Dolby is extremely difficult to actually predict. But this, Zach Scroggins, you probably don't know who the hell this guy is. He is a very big, he's undefeated, very big, 6'3", undefeated welterweight. So he's got a bit of momentum on his side. He's got a large presence in the octagon and has pretty decent power on his side as well, and control on the ground. But it just doesn't matter, because you just don't want Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos as your first opponent in the UFC, let alone being on short notice. This is a very uphill battle for Scroggin, to be honest. He's got decent striking, decent ground game overall. He's pretty well-rounded. But Zaleski dos Santos, his technical boxing is just going to create such a disparity here. Dos Santos is fighting guys like Rinat Fakhretdinov. You know, he's fighting guys like Randy Brown. He's fighting these guys that are basically top 15. He's fighting ranked level opposition. Zach Scroggin has not even had 10 fights in MMA, and he's going against a guy like this that is he's honestly just getting better with age. So honestly, Dos Santos, he just has this in the bag, to be honest. I think that he is going to actually honestly be able to get this done by a KO TKO here. His technical boxing is just going to be too much for Zach Scroggin coming in on short notice. Scroggin's got to get this fight to the ground. But honestly, Dos Santos has just fought so much better opposition that have had ground game threats that he's been able to stuff. Scroggin is not going to be able to get this one to the ground and impose his will. Even if he gets it to the ground, he's not going to be able to impose his will. Dos Santos has got this one in the bag, and I think he's going to start to lay on some volume in the first round, and then Scroggin's going to realize, oh shit, second round, he's getting taken out. Moving up the card to Ilia Toptoro's body double versus the most hood name I've probably ever heard, Cortavious Romious. Now, Bolanos, obviously being the body double, he is a guy that's looking pretty decent so far. I'm not going to lie. I mean, he obviously lost to McGee, but Bolanos, he is someone that has got power. He's a natural striker and has a pretty good output, but the most important part of his game, especially in this matchup, is the timing of his strikes, especially with his counters, which he showed at his fight against Phillips. The right cross was so clean in that fight, was timing it to perfection, and he has nice leg kicks as well, nice body kicks. So his striking is ultimately very, very clean, very smooth on the feet. But his takedown offense / defense is not the greatest. Just his overall awareness is pretty piss poor. And Cortavious on the other side, he is tiny, but he is someone that is able to play into the weaknesses of Bolanos. He's very explosive, very strong. He's like a mini Michael Chandler, and he has very, very fast hands, pretty good ground game overall as well, just in terms of controlling and his submission offense. I think that he will be able to out-transition Bolanos on the ground overall. But I don't like the technical striking difference between him and Bolanos, with Romious being that small. I think the counter striking of Bolanos with the fighters that he has fought, Romious is a guy that's been tagged before. I mean, he's been slept by Ramon Tavares in literally like the first 30 seconds of their fight. So his chin is exposed there. And Bolanos, he's a guy that has the counters there. And Romious made the mistake by getting too over aggressive. And that's where I think, honestly, I think Bolanos is going to be able to take advantage in this fight. He's fought better opposition. He's got better counter striking. He just needs to make sure that he's not getting submitted in this fight. fight. And when this fight was made, he would have been drilling and drilling and drilling his takedown defense because his striking is there. And ultimately, I think with the ability of his counter striking and Romious not having the greatest of gas tanks overall through the regional scene in terms of making it to that third round, I'm going to be taking Bolanos by a KO TKO finish here around the third round. I do think he's able to stuff the takedowns. I think that he's going to be able to pile on the volume through the first and second, and then I think he's going to take him out in the third round. Definitely a tricky pick. Romious is obviously the favorite here, which if he can impose his will on the ground, he could very well get it. But just the disparity in the striking, I think, is a little bit worse than the disparity on the ground. And that's why I'm going to be taking Bolanos in this one. Moving up the card to Karolina Kowalkiewicz versus Denise Gomes. So this obviously is a massive fight for Denise Gomes. It's for her to get into the top 15. And Karolina has been in the top 15 for a very long time. I mean, she's stayed consistent in terms of being able to keep her number. And that's really thanks to her volume, her durability, and her consistent pacing as well. And mixing the volume and the durability, obviously offense and defense, that's where she's found that success, but those attributes are really cut down and degraded by her age, and she is almost 40 years old now. And going against someone who is naturally faster, is definitely more powerful, and is more hungry at 24 years old, in Denise Gomes is just, it's not a recipe for Karolina it's not a recipe for her to win this fight, to be honest. I think Denise Gomes just has too much power, too much forward pressure capabilities. She's just getting better with her boxing as well. I think she's going to be able to take the decision win here. Karolina obviously crafty, and I think that's where she's going to be able to keep herself safe from the KO TKO. But I could see it happening in the first round if Karolina's not warm and getting taken out pretty much straight off the bat. But I'm more safe in saying with that craftiness, obviously being a veteran, I think that Karolina will be able to survive. But Denise Gomes being that pressure heavy, landing, I think she'll just land the better shots overall as well, because Karolina just doesn't move her head that well. I honestly, the only way I can see Karolina coming away from this is if Gomes gasses herself out badly, which I just don't see it happening. I think the likelihood of that is pretty low, and that's with Denise Gomes taking the first 2 rounds and then losing the cardio battle. She would still win by a 29-28 decision, which I think is what is going to happen here. I do think the 29-28 is there for Denise Gomes. Karolina needs to get this to the ground, but Denise Gomes in her last fight, fighting against Mora, she was very defensively sound on the ground and obviously showed that strength in the clinch as well. So it's not leaving a lot of avenues for Karolina here, and I honestly think, unfortunate for her, but it's time for Gomes to hit the rankings now. Moving up the card to Dusko Todorovic versus Mansour Abdul-Malik. Now, that is a mouthful, but I will say it's worth it because these guys are definitely going to bring it in this fight. Very high output fighters. I mean, both of them land over 5 strikes per minute. Both of them are very accurate as well, and both of them are very strong. But Abdul-Malik, the one that you probably don't know much about, he is a unit, very, very strong, has very good power, both hands, both kicks. I mean, he's got power everywhere, and he applies consistent pressure as well when he fights. And not only that, he trains out of Extreme Couture, so he's head coached by Eric Nixick. He's got Sean Strickland to train with. He's got Chris Curtis to train with. He's got a lot of 185ers there that are at its disposal to train with. So he is very primed and prepared, and he's got a 100% finish rate. He's only gone out of the first round once, and that was on Dana White's Contender Series against Schultz, which, I mean, he looked fantastic. I mean, he didn't look gassed at all, which is great. Obviously, we haven't seen him go to a third round, so we don't know how great his gas tank is going to be, especially against someone like Dusko, who is going to be able to pressure him in ways that he probably hasn't seen before, because Dusko is obviously much more of a veteran overall. And with Dusko, I mean, he is the more experienced without a doubt, and is also a finishing machine. So he's only gone to decision twice, lost one and won one, but I only see this going one of two ways. Either Malik runs straight through him in the first round, or Todorovic weathers the storm, drains the tank, and takes out Malik in the second half of the fight, the second half of the second round or the third round. That's how I see this going. But either way, there's going to be a KO TKO in this fight. I'm pretty damn sure of it, because Dusko, obviously he has a couple more submission wins, but getting this to the ground against someone that is that strong like Mansour, it's going to be very difficult. And Mansour's pretty good on the ground as well. His transitions are actually pretty decent for such a big guy. And honestly, I've got to take Abdul-Malik in this fight. Todorovic, all his submissions have come way earlier in his career. He doesn't actually have any recent threats with those. But yeah, unless Todorovic can get this done by a clean shot in the first, or he really just drains out the clock to the second or the third, which he isn't known to do, I've got Abdul-Malik going to 7-0 as another undefeated fighter. And honestly, I think it's going to be pretty brutal. Moving up the card to Luana Pinheiro versus Gillian Robertson. So this was the fight that needed to happen after Gillian Robertson absolutely destroyed Michelle Waterson Gomes, which I did mention in the Barboza versus Murphy fight night matchups to make video. And honestly, having this, it's a good ground game matchup, to be fair. And neither of them are the greatest on the feet, but Luana, she just throws very heavy looping shots, pretty much overcommits to a lot of her shots, gets out of position, which Angela Hill completely exposed her, got her to the ground and submitted her. And in comparison, Gillian Robertson obviously isn't the greatest on the feet, but she's better fundamentally. She doesn't overextend, but also her striking arsenal doesn't extend past that. She's not someone that's like a power striker or anything like that. Not much power threat there. But honestly, when we're looking at the calibers of their ground game, Luana Pinheiro, she got submitted by Angela Hill, so we know she's not invincible. And Gillian Robertson, next to Verna Jandiroba, she is without a doubt the best submission artist in the entire division. She is a absolute submission freak, especially with her chokes. And honestly, I do believe in terms of transitionally, because that's included in that grappling prowess that she does have, she is going to be able to out transition Pinheiro on the ground and just find better success when it comes to the striking, especially just on the volume, because she's going to use the jab, she's going to use the straight. Luana's going to overcommit, she's going to get tagged, and then on the ground, Gillian is obviously going to be able to out transition. I've got more faith in her in that area without a doubt, and I think that is where she's going to be able to push this one to a decision, or possibly a third round submission for Gillian Robertson. Probably looking at a choke, to be honest. She's got about 7 or 8 of them, so I honestly do think that Gillian is going to be able to get this done by a finish or decision. But in true fashion, I'm going to hold up Luana Pinheiro's submission defense, and I'm going to say that it's going to be a decision win based on control time and based off those fundamental skills on the feet. Moving up the card to Ricky Turcios versus Bernardo Sopai. So Sopai is the definition of a kill or be killed fighter. In his wins, he has 10 out of 11 of them by finish. And in his last 3 wins, all by KO consecutively. But then in his last fight, he got absolutely murdered by Vinicius Oliveira in that fight. Flying knee to the chin, down and out. So it's going to be a massive tell to see how he comes back in this fight. This fight is just going to be a make or break, because that KO that he took was a career-changing KO without a doubt. So it's going to be tricky for him, but statistically against Turcios, he is more accurate on the feet. He's got the power there without a doubt, and he consistently initiates takedowns to hunt submission. So he is the one that is going to be trying to finish this fight. He's got the well-rounded game. Turcios does as well, but he does not have offensive threats. He's good, very good with his control. He just glues to his opponents, and he tries to obviously draw out the decisions from that control. But the offensive threat from Sopai everywhere, I think, is just either going to be able to land. He's just going to clear out the decision on damage, which, yes, I do think he's going to win by a decision. Turcios is durable. It's hard to get him out of there. And Sopai, I think, is going to be tentative to a point in that first round because of what happened to him in the last fight. So I think that Tercios could probably find the first round. I think he could win that first round just on control and he's a slippery bugger. I think he could honestly just transition his way out of that first round, but then the second and the third, once Sopai knocks that rust off from that KO he took, he starts laying on the offensive threats. He gets more confident with his striking, which he's got heavier hands, and then also with the ground game, I think he's got the ability to transition out and obviously threat with some submissions. And Tercios just got taken out by Raul Rosas Jr. by submission, so we know he's not invincible there. So I think with those offensive threats in all avenues, I do believe that he is going to be able to get that one done by a decision win here. And moving up to our new co-main event, because Cody Garbrandt has pretty much just pulled out as I'm recording this video, so this has been fucking fantastic. But this as a co-main, I am not complaining. We got Gerald Meerschaert GM3 versus Reinier De Ridder. Now this is going to be a massive tell for the quality across organizations, because if De Ridder loses this fight, it really just highlights the quality of UFC fighters. As a double champion from one championship being beaten by a middle-of-the-road Gerald Meerschaert in that middleweight division, that is showing how deep and how dangerous the UFC fighters actually are in comparison to a lot of other fighters. But if you have not seen Reinier De Ridder before, he is a very high-level grappler. He has very nice judo throws, transitions on the ground very well, and he is a big boy. He was traditionally a light heavyweight fighter and then moved down to middleweight, and has also claimed middleweight and light heavyweight belts at the same time, as we know him now famously as a double champion from one championship. But that is all thanks to his submission arsenal. I mean, he has rear naked chokes, Darce chokes, arm bars, triangles, bloody side chokes. He has a lot. He has a lot of different finishes. Obviously 11-0 has never been finished in that department. So I am liking this matchup because we know Gerald Meerschaert 29-8 when it comes to submissions. These guys are very, very good grapplers, and it's going to be interesting to see how Reinier, who is just such an accomplished grappler outside, goes up against a veteran in that grappling department that is UFC level. Now, Ridder, he is going to have to really see how he goes on the feet with this fight, because Meerschaert is very sneaky on the ground, and De Ridder, I think, is going to be someone that needs to honestly pile on the damage early to then get Meerschaert out of there, because Meerschaert is someone that is not that lackluster with his striking as well, and he needs to be able to get Meerschaert out of there off the feet and onto the ground, because I just think Meerschaert is better, because De Ridder, he doesn't have great striking realistically. He's got decent like clinch knees, but realistically aside from that, he's pretty lackluster in the striking. He gets exposed badly against pressure heavy strikers. I mean, when he fought Anatoly Malikin, got taken out twice, and that is very recent as well. And Anatoly Malikin is a very good fighter, don't get me wrong, but getting pressured against fighters that have decent striking, that's where De Ridder can get exposed. And can he honestly beat GM3 in this? I think if GM3 was any better in the striking, I think that's where De Ridder would definitely struggle. But I think that Gerald Meerschaert just is not good enough in the striking to really punish De Ridder. And De Ridder is just a bigger fighter. I mean, his frame, his reach, 79-inch reach, and that grappling capability overall, I think that he is going to be able to take this one by submission. I'm not going to lie. I think De Ridder is going to be able to get it done. Just the way he moves and maneuvers himself with the grappling exchanges, I do think around the second to the third round, seeing Meerschaert fade in those rounds, I think De Ridder is going to be able to lock up probably like a rear naked choke, possibly even fling over an arm bar, possibly an arm triangle. I mean, there's so many different ways to do it. It's very hard to predict a specific, but honestly, I think Ridder gets the clinch knees, he makes it a bit dirty, he's the one that starts pressuring, because when he's on the front foot he's not too bad, but on the back foot he's terrible. I think he's the one that really imposes his will, pressures forward, hurts Gerald Meerschaert to the body, gets him to the ground, and then submits him. So it's a very hard one to predict, obviously because stylistically, but it's going to be very entertaining to see Reinier De Ridder actually in the UFC now and see how far he can go in the 185-pound division. Moving up the card to the main event, Neil Magny versus Carlos Prates. Now, Neil Magny, we all know, very valuable gatekeeper at 170 pounds. I mean, he has been the gatekeeper there since Miktubek Oralbai invented fucking fire. I mean, he has been there for a long time, and he has always been game to fight absolutely anyone. So he is a fan favorite to an extent, and he needs to get this to the ground as soon as possible. It's simple as that. Carlos Prates is 3-3 with submissions. Now, I've heard some pretty controversial stories about Prates and his losses, though. You know, certain weight issues and whatnot, not with Prates, but just the way that those fights on the regional scene were structured really just did not favor Carlos Prates. And I think that is where his losses are a little bit skewed, and I think we can really see that from the performances he's been having in the UFC. I mean, he has been killing his opponents, like killed Radtke, killed Li Jingliang. I mean, Trevin Giles dead. I mean, he's looked fantastic and that realistically, that's just why I say Neil Magny has to get it to the ground. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. We've all seen it. Carlos Prates, if this stays on the feet, Magny does not get it to the ground. 5 rounds, Magny is going to get chinned without a doubt. I mean, Prates is so laser with his striking, especially with that left hand, and the momentum's on his side. And honestly, being out of the Fighting Nerds gym, they are just insane. The Fighting Nerds gym are just on some different kind of momentum at this point. And honestly, having those training partners around him is just making him better and better and better. He's 31 years old. He's only just getting into his prime. And Prates is going to be taking this so seriously because this is his opportunity for the rankings. And I see him taking out Neil Magny in the 2nd to the 3rd round here. I'm very confident in that. I think Prates, knowing that it is his first 5-round fight, I think he is going to maintain that cardio a little bit in the 1st round, and hopefully those smoking lungs don't give out. I think he's going to maintain that in the 1st round. I still think he'll win on damage, but then the 2nd and the 3rd is where he is going to pick up the pace badly. And this is just emphasized even more historically with Neil Magny, because Neil Magny is good against fighters that are shorter than him, but going against a guy that is pretty much the same reach, the same stature and everything. I mean, look what happened when Neil Magny fought Ian Gary. He fought Michael Morales. He got destroyed. And Carlos Prates is simply just going to be able to do the same, just with his KO power, which is better than both of theirs, and obviously that momentum on his side. Honestly, easy said and done. Prates, take my money. Moving on to the fight card awards, kicking it off with fight of the night, I have got Dusko Todorovic versus Mansour Abdul-Malik. I can't believe I made myself say that again. These guys are just going to put on a war. I do honestly think so. Just the pure strength. I mean, just their career notches, you know, with the KOs, the submissions. I mean, these guys are just naturally finishing machines. And when two of these guys clash, someone is getting brutally chinned. And I'm sorry, Dusko, it's going to be you. I'm moving on to performance of the night. Gotta give it to Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. I mean, Zach Scroggin, look, he's looking decent in terms of his momentum and everything, but this is just a terrible fight to take. Honestly, I'm very confident in Elizeu in this fight. He's almost taken out Rinat Fakhretdinov. I mean, he had a very competitive fight against Randy Brown. He's had great fights in his career. Spinning heel kicked Sean Strickland and KO'd him. I mean, this guy ages like fine wine. He is going to find the finish in this fight. He is just going to be way too much for Zach. And moving on to fighter to watch, which I usually go down the card and find some younger fighters that haven't really been heard of, but Reinier De Ridder is someone that a lot of people have not heard of, and this is a guy that you definitely need to look out for, especially when we look at the landscape of the middleweight division, it being more so striking heavy, and it has been for a very, very long time. Reinier De Ridder is the contrast of that. He is a grappling freak. He is very, very versatile and dangerous with his submissions and his takedowns, his judo. He's very good there, so it's going to be good to see how he mixes up with that middleweight division and all those strikers in there. I do think that he can get somewhere close to the top 5, but with how poor his striking is on the back foot, I just don't see it getting any further than that unless he can prove us wrong. That's why we got to watch out for him. Now, honestly, a fight against Brendan Allen or against an Anthony Hernandez, that would be fantastic for him. So I'm very keen to see him hopefully move up the division and take this win by a submission. Now, moving on to finish of the night, giving it to the main man, Carlos Prates. I mean, this guy with the fighting nerds, do I need to say more? I don't really shut up about them. Carlos Prates, he is a killer. He has looked fantastic so far in the UFC. I mean, just taking out pretty much all of his opponents. I mean, even before the UFC, he's just on a finishing streak. And taking out a guy like Li Jingliang, who is that durable, man, he is looking great. And with the first 5-round fight, it's going to be interesting to see if he mixes up his tempo. But Neil Magny, my guy, you got to get this one to the ground. Otherwise, it is a long, unconscious night for you. Hope you enjoyed today's predictions video, and if you want to see more MMA based content, definitely check out my tier list ranking video on when every single undefeated fighter will lose their 0. And with that, thank you for watching the video, and please like, comment, subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one.